Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thanks for joining day 3 of the project technical gathering for OpenStack Manila for the Wallaby release cycle. Today we have a bunch of topics pretty much stacked one on top of the other. So we'll try to see if we can make it through these topics today. And we are starting to probably lose people because it's meeting fatigue. So we will try to make time for as many breaks as possible as required. So at some point, if you feel you need to, stop and step out, take a minute, do let me know, and we will. But I'll try to schedule some as well. So let's begin the day with talking about responsibility for code reviews. So Tom had some comments for us based on how the last cycle went. And this was brought up a little bit in the retrospective meeting, but Tom, yeah, do you want to give us
Sure,
an overview?
and this doesn't have to take a long time. I think we made most of the people who are here heard me make the observation while we were doing the last code reviews that I wished we had reviewers from other backends that would have been able to exploit the new capabilities that were getting merged into core. Both so they would be aware of them and so that if there was anything that the current set of reviewers are missing because they weren't deeply familiar with those backends, that would get considered. And then similarly to the people with backends like that, also if we had any actual operators that we know of using a backend that would have such a capability, then they might be really good reviewers as well. So these are reviewers who are not necessarily Manila core reviewers, but who would have useful input. Now that's just expressed as a wish at this point. I'm interested in, first of all, if anybody thinks that's for some reason not a good idea, we should hear that. But then if we do think it's a good idea, we should think about maybe is there any way to encourage that? I have one idea only on that front right now, but maybe we should answer this question first. Does this seem like a good idea to us, to other people, if we can do it?
Yeah, so just to cover the context part of it, so we are talking about this because in the last cycle we had share server migration, which was mostly a vendor backend thing. And Douglas, Carlos, etc. worked on the implementation for a first-party driver, but it isn't as sophisticated as any of the vendor backends that we have. The work that was done on the first-party driver was just to ensure that we had gate test coverage for the Manila API pieces. And so we were looking at it from a simplistic perspective of these are the driver interactions that we're going to call into and such. And because we just had one of the vendors implement that feature, we would obviously be biased looking at okay, so this is how it works with, let's say, the NetApp backends. So this ought to be right. But
Yeah, I think
that isn't
everyone who reviewed had to some extent a NetApp background.
right.
I know when I reviewed and looked at the feature, even though I'd forgotten a lot, it was still from that kind of perspective. Yeah, so sorry to interrupt, Gautam, but that's my concern is it's not anything about you know, one vendor pushing something through or anything
Yep.
like that. I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned that the core code we merge
Is generic enough
best
to,
quality and generic enough and so on, that
yeah,
we not have
absolutely.
blinders on with respect to some backend's needs or something like that. In this particular case, you know, I think all of us had concerns about long-running operations that might fail and how we would recover from those and so on. And I found myself wondering, well, I wonder how it could fail on another kind of backend, and have we handled that? Are we going to have to go do bug fixes for that? And do we have the flexibility to do it? I'm not too worried in this case, but that's so my idea. The only idea I really have right now is that perhaps, I mean, there are two aspects of it, but one is that perhaps when we propose specs, and in addition to proposing, to indicating who's going to do the work, the development and testing work, we might want to consider at that time who would be impacted and who should be asked to review. We cannot force them to review, and I'm not saying that a feature shouldn't merge unless it has approval from those people, but at least we could identify them. And then I think it should be the responsibility of the people pushing the review and the change rather than the PTL, as much as I like to give all the work to Gotham, to pursue those people. You know, so if the expectation would be you want to merge something into Manila, you will help or actually drive the identification of the impacted parties. And when you, by the time you're asking for, you know, collaborative review session meetings or whatever, you will have done your best at least to try to get them to join. Does that seem like a reasonable idea?
Yeah, makes sense for me. We should try to reach at least the most active vendors and developers, and also operators, and try invite them to review specs and code, and also to participate on those collab reviews, for example, or
yes. So to give a current example, I'm pushing this idea of VertIOFS as something we ought to support in Manila and Nova. So it would be incumbent on me and that, you know, that can involve all kinds of help and discussion and asking for help and everything else, but to say, okay, Tom, we know, is looking at this from the viewpoint of the CephFS driver and the dangerous CephFS client and so on. But who else might be interested in using this feature? And I think it could benefit probably anybody who runs with DHSS equal false and wants to serve multiple tenants with that driver. You know, those are the kind of parties. So what I would do, I would be responsible. Basically, my outlook ought to be that I'm looking for allies, you know, across to other vendors to promote a valuable feature for Manila. So even if I'm competing with, I don't know, you know, somebody, I'll make up a silly example right now, but, you know, say, I don't know, Canonical or somebody, since I'm a distro, I'll pick a different distro. Distro X is developing a software-defined backend where they don't use Ceph, they use ClusterFS or something. and we compete in the marketplace for that people that want to use software to find backends with DHIS equal false. It ought to be my duty as an upstream person to say, okay, they're in OpenStack as well. They're working on Manila as well. We have a common interest here in developing this. So I'm going to reach out to them. I'm going to see if they want to work on it with us. They don't have to work on it with us, but they ought to at least review it and give us feedback. I can't force them to do it, but I'm going to kind of sell the idea that it's in our common interest to build allegiances and stuff like that. That's really good for OpenStack and really good for Manila. I'll quit preaching now, but that's my idea.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that example. That's a great way to put it. So I think Douglas said this is absolutely doable, especially because we're talking a past feature that we implemented. So how do we do it would be another question. We do have, I think Douglas started this a couple of cycles ago. We did start maintaining a vendor contacts list. And I use that list loosely to reach out to a bunch of people at the beginning of PTGs, for instance, saying like this talk, for instance, should be interesting to you because we really need your feedback on how we want to improve reviews and stuff like that. So we can use that. We can, it's unfortunate we'd have to use something like that when we could directly just mail the OpenStack discuss list. And the discuss list and the operators list have, I think, been merged at this point. So you could just use
Yes.
one of them. And of course, there might be people that are not vendors. Like, for example, these are people who might potentially use the feature that you're writing. And you might know them outside, and so it's not unfair to basically invite them from out of band of the mailing list or something. Like, you talk to them on Slack or send them an email directly because they're going to be interested in this feature. So, but I like the idea that Tom's proposing, that you pool this list of people as you think about the feature itself. And let's discuss. Let's, put down these potential people on some sort of an Etherpad or something like that.
Well, and I think we're already doing that well with Morris.
Right.
Karlika. Be a great example. He is not working for a storage vendor, but he's very much influencing the shape of features from real operational needs. We have done that before with Stern. In fact, when Arne Wielbach came in with real operational requests, I know we gave them high priority, and he helped influence some of our features in very positive way.
Absolutely.
So it's not like we don't do this. It's just we can do more.
Yeah, let's do that. So it appears that one of this idea is that we don't do this as an afterthought. We don't do this during Feature Freeze week. We ought to be doing this, actively thinking about it as we begin working on the feature. So let's say, taking a concrete example, the Vert.io-FS stuff, we should be doing this now, and inviting people that we think might be helpful in this feature. And if you want help, let's discuss this in the meetings. Let's talk one-on-one and just ask each other, do you think somebody else might be interested in this? Or even actively, each one of us pools these names and just hands it over to the person that's developing the feature, people that are developing the feature, for instance, and have them reach out. How's that for a plan?
Yes, I think that's right. And for the concrete case with Vert.io-FS, I think tomorrow's meeting is primarily with Nova to not get kicked out of the room, as it were. and see if we can get, but I think assuming that we're still alive with the proposal at that point, because we will not have a spec as of, it's not as far along as a lot of things, but we may have an agreement that we're going to work on a spec or something like that. And that might be a good point to send a report to OpenStack, discuss, indicate that, of course, we want to use it for CephFS and explain why, but that we also think it would be useful for other basically DHS equal false backends, but other backends that don't have their own solution for multi-tenant networking, and invite people, to help shape us then, or something like that. And I can talk with people I'll talk with people in channel maybe before I send it, so we solicit ideas. Does that sound good? So since I'm asking people to do it, I ought to do it myself and do it as early as reasonable.
Yep. No, that sounds great to me. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts?
Maybe in a meeting soon, then, not now. We can, as specs come up, we can ask just the supply to them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I'll take note of if I'm driving the IRC meetings to bring this up.
I think I managed to use up the time anyway, sorry.
Okay. But again, I mean, we are a great team only because we love to collaborate and help each other out. So if you are aware when somebody is working on a feature, you're aware of the people that might be affected and interested, just feel free to suggest it to the feature authors, so they can go ahead and reach out to them. So this isn't always on the feature authors, but also every one of us has a collective responsibility as well to identify who we need to contact. All right. Any other thoughts on this? If not, let's move on to our next topic. Thanks, Tom, for bringing this to light and trying to formalize this. This is pretty important because we do run pillar to post to actually do the right thing at the end of each cycle, and this is actually nice if you're thinking about it throughout. So let's move on. Our next topic here is acting on deprecation support removals. And Tom started on this when he was working on the configuration stuff. Tom, do you want to, introduce this topic?
Yeah, basically, I got voluntold to work on fixing the gap we have in our docs for generating configuration tables. And when I went to look at that problem, I said, I think this would be easier if we got rid of all the old deprecations, just simplify the field a little bit. And notice that we had all kinds of config that was deprecated for many, many, many cycles that we had never cleaned up. So as a way of procrastinating on the other job that I didn't have a solution to yet, I started attempting to clean up. So I've gone through here and removed all kinds of configuration options that are deprecated, that have been logged as deprecated, and so on, deprecated properly for more than, I think at the time I was saying, from all the way up to train or something like that. And I left the ones that needed to stay around a cycle or two. This patch passed previously. Gotham and I, thinking about it together, because I totally agreed with him, said, look, this is be better to do at the beginning of a news cycle. It's just safer, and it's the kind of thing that can benefit from soak time in case there's something here somebody's relying on, even though it's not deprecated, there will be more time to find out, and so on. Also, as you can see here, the release note attempts to be comprehensive and cover everything. This is a manual. This was a manual task for me. It's probably the kind of thing that could have some errors in it, would benefit from some more eyes in review. I'll just mention the -1 on this right now is due to some issues currently with the new libvirt driver in Nova. And they fixed one bug, so I rechecked it, and there seems to be another one. But anyway, Nova's not coming up when for the LVM job. And we'll look at that, but it has nothing to do with this patch. Is there more you wanted as background, Gotham?
No, exactly that. And part of the problem here is that when you grep this, I know you're all familiar with this code search tool. So there's codesearch.openstack.org, which allows you to, take a look at everything that are there in at least the OpenStack repos and see if there are usages of a particular thing. So and I was just going down this list and trying to find where else are these options used. And to try to be helpful to people, I mean, a lot of these options, like for example, these third-party options, we deprecated them in code, let's say, but then we have never removed support from some sort of a deployment tool or a configuration tool like Puppet or Ansible or something. So that's going to break. They're going to break because we make this change, and it's a dicey thing. So I wanted to give people advance notice that, listen, when you deprecate something, you ought to act on everywhere else that this is deprecated, because many of these deprecations are kind of harmless. You're replacing an option one-to-one, or maybe you're moving an option from a group to another group, or you're basically we have a bunch of network configuration options that moved into their own network config groups and all the way back in Pike. So we have to get rid of the older way of doing things. Otherwise, we have a messy configuration system. So we can't stop moving ahead. At the same time, if we end up breaking everybody, we might annoy people without, giving them advance notice. So that was the kind of reason to hold back from doing this in the last cycle. Although, like Tom said, these have been deprecated for ages. None of them are in the last cycle even. These
Yeah,
weren't
but you're right.
years.
Even though they've been deprecated for ages, if customers break because of them, that's bad. So
Exactly.
and
So
honestly, did this, I wasn't really thinking about the deployment tools.
yeah.
And your point's valid.
Yep. So we're going to probably have to reach out again, to people that don't attend. Maybe I'll do this as part of writing the minutes for this. Are there any disagreements to this? Any other suggestions on how we should be doing this better or something like that?
Well, we could just keep deprecated stuff forever. I mean, I'm just want to cover the possibility and even if we want to say no, don't want to do that.
So the downsides of keeping that forever are you began to do this because our config documentation tooling is broken, and so we can't make progress on that. And maybe we will be able to make progress on that, but we end up generating a very messy config sample.
Yeah.
with a
Yeah,
with a
I
lot
think
of
it was
text.
not so much that we could not generate it all. If we solve the problem, it will work
Yeah,
for deprecated stuff too. But the result will be ugly and harder for people to consume, and it'll also
exactly.
be harder to verify that the configuration tool is doing what we want.
Yeah,
The config
and
generation tool. So those are the
and the
reasons I made it, not because I thought, probably the actual problem of generating the config isn't that much harder, but verifying it correct is harder.
exactly when you have
A complaint of OpenStack users that it's complicated, it's complex, it has so many options. So we have so many options in general terms, like the options that you are supposed to use. Imagine that if we keep deprecated options for cycles and we just keep them there, we have to maintain that and make sure that we are clear that those are deprecated. I honestly don't see a good point of why we would like to keep those. If we break somebody, they will make us know, like, I was using this option, which is the option that I should supposed to use, right?
No, you're right.
So
That was one way of looking at this, that we could go ahead and merge this, and then the deployment tools would just adjust. But we didn't want to pull the trigger at the end of last cycle, only because deployment tools trail by a cycle or so, I think, or by a milestone or so. So I didn't want to have angry mail at the beginning of the cycle saying you just broke us, you're making us do all this work
Yeah,
at the end of
that's a
our
smart
cycle.
move.
So yeah, so we have then no reason, is what I'm hearing, to hold off on this right now. So we can go ahead and review this and get this merged. Does that make sense?
I think it does. And
Okay.
then,
Yeah.
we, for instance, care about the Puppet stuff because we consume this configuration there. But we have a release to catch up and get it done. And we can even see if some of the people that do Puppet full time just pick it up and fix it for a little bit. They're actually pretty good about it. But then, yes, we should have an email saying this has been done to the distro list, to the discuss list, so that other deployment tools can adjust as well. In theory, they're probably all doing this all along, right? Because they're all components all over OpenStack that are making changes that they need to.
Exactly, and the policy around deprecation, if we have to remind someone, is you deprecate an option that's used for one cycle, and if you're trying to deprecate it at the end of the cycle, you try to keep it around for 2 cycles. But otherwise, you deprecate it and keep it around, keep support around for that option for 1 cycle, and then you remove it from code the cycle that follows. That's the general policy, giving operators at least 1 cycle of deprecation warnings in their logs, or something, giving them 1 cycle of advance notice before you end support for it. So this was never supposed to happen. It has happened because vendors have probably just, at least where vendors drivers are involved, have just assumed that we're going to take care of deprecations, or this probably is harmless, or maybe they don't really understand the policy. I mean, I could make all sorts of speculations on why someone didn't act on these deprecations earlier, and I'm very thankful that Tom is bringing this up, because I want to act on this as aggressively as we're doing now, because we want to fix the user experience. That's very important to us. It's really hard, as Victoria said, configuring OpenStack. We really don't want to keep that image going forward, because we want to be nice to vendors. So, I think we've made the points. Any other concerns regarding this? I don't remember Douglas, Carlos. I remember asking one of you to take a look at this from a code review perspective. Have you? Would one of you go ahead and add your reviews? Perhaps soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't take a look yet, but I will take a look.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe this can probably break our CI too, because we might have some old configuration option there, but it's very easy to fix.
Absolutely.
On the
Thank you. Yeah, if you check and see with your CI, that would be awesome.
So I'll take an action item for Douglas, Carlos, and myself to merge this change. So I mean, assuming CI is passing, as Tom said, there is some issue right now with the Nova job, sorry, with the LVM job. So we'll see what's happening there, and we'll go ahead and merge this. And we've through this and through the minutes that we're writing for this PTG, given people the intent of why we're doing this. All right, so there's nothing more to discuss, I suppose, on this. We've spent sufficient time. Let's just quickly take a 5-minute break, or do you want that to be 10 minutes before we hand this over to Carlos for the community goal update?
All right.
Does 10 minutes work? Actually, I'm going to use Wiki's fancy tool right now. Let me see if I have it. Time in date / timer.
Oh, I thought you were going to do the Pomodoro. Nice blog, Vicky.
Oh, nice.
All right, so we are going.
You have
Let
clocks
me give
for
it.
everything.
It's 12 minutes because it's going to be a round number. So here's the timer for taking a break. So let's be back in 12 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Welcome back. So we are getting started with Carlos to talk about the upcoming community cycle goal or Wallaby cycle community goal. So Carlos, it's all up to you.
Thanks, Gautam. So I'm here to talk a little bit today about one of the goals we have for OpenStack Manila, which is migrating the code to make it stop using Oslo Rootwrap and make it use Oslo PrivSep. So basically, we have the Gold Champion, which described some things here for us. And in the descriptions, that were said that the Oslo Rootwrap library is a precursor of Oslo PrivSep, and that allows the code to run the commands under sudo, and if it matches a predefined filter. So also, there are some things here that motivated this migration. They mentioned the bad performance of calling the commands in order to accomplish simple tasks, and also Rootwrap also led to bad security, and it was difficult to filter commands in a way that would not easily allow privilege escalation. And some things about PrivSep. They said it offers a superior security model and faster and more secure. And since Oslo PrivSep was released, the community has encouraged the use of Oslo PrivSep and the deprecation of any code using Oslo Rootwrap. And a bunch of projects were impacted by this decision. Some of them already started the migration, and I guess some of them are already finished. So we have some of them in progress, and we still need to start our migration. And I intend to work on this migration from Manila. Of course, I will be poking a lot of you guys to ask some questions and some reviews and etc. But basically, this is the idea to have to start the migration for this from Rootwrap to PrevSep, and the champion goal, the champion of this goal also added a usage guide here in the documentation for us, saying some things about the usage of Oslo PrevSep, and stated that Oslo PrevSep lets us define in our code the specific functions that will run in predefined privilege contexts. So, I mean, it lets we run functions with more or less privilege than the rest of the code. And PrevSep functions will live in a specific PrevSep model, for example, PrevSep Manila. So we will need to create a model with some capabilities and some privileges for specific functions. So they added some points here in the, we do have some steps to have this migration completed. The first of them would be implement a PrevSep model for Manila, such as an example they have done in Ironic. So it's the thing that I mentioned before. So each project that implements it will need to have a PrevSep model, and this model will have we need to have an init file with the privileges and stuff. Then we would need to create files to place the necessary functions, and I added an example here as well in a way that Ironic is implementing. And the last item would be to replace the occurrences in the code. So we would basically need to search for all the occurrences and have all of these things replaced. So we have a list of the commands that we will need to replace in Manila. This list, I think it has only two elements that won't need to be replaced. I still need to double check the list, but I think that basically that's two. And we intend to migrate this change for the first part drivers. I was talking to Gautam and Douglas, and we talking about this to make the migration first for the first party drivers. And as a completion criteria, we would have that a migrated project should not import all the Rootwrap, and the Rootwrap filter should be deleted, and the library should not be required anymore during the project installation. And the migration will be considered completed when no project inherits also Rootwrap, and it's not imported or hacking. So basically, this second one is regarding the migration itself for all the OpenStack. So I think that's it in an overall about this migration. So it's open to questions and concerns and some sort of thing that you guys want to bring up now.
Yeah, I have some concerns. Firstly, thank you for picking this community goal up. This is one of those things that was proposed a few cycles ago, and we didn't have bandwidth in the Manila community to go commit to this goal. And it was also, I mean, PrevSep itself has, as I understand it, evolved a lot over the last few cycles. I mean, the Cinder team, for instance, migrated along when it came along, and at the time they realized that there were a lot of parallelism issues with PrevSep that was making everything. I mean, that caused performance issues and such. So those issues have been fixed now, evidently by the number of projects that are moving to PrevSep. So that is what I understand from this, and that's why I think this is a feasible goal today. But I'm not so sure as in is this feasible for our group? I mean, Carlos graciously, got voluntold to work on this and is really happy to do that now. Sorry, we are really happy that he's doing that. Uh, but I mean, the completion criteria kind of worries me. One is it says that the project should no longer import Oslo Rootwrap, and all Rootwrap filters should be deleted, and the library should not be required anymore during project installation. That is a lofty goal for us, given that a lot of the Rootwrap usage, and I think Carlos linked this. You look at
Yeah.
this filters file. A lot of this comes from shared drivers uh, that are not first-party drivers. So, for example, there's a bunch of usage in the IBM GAPFS driver. There is some usage in the Ganesha modules. The ZFS on Linux driver is, we can consider that first party. So there are a bunch of things over here that we may not get to by the end of this cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, a bulk of it is first-party drivers, but or rather first-party or open-source drivers such as CephFS, CFS on Linux, LVM, generic container, and such. But there are going to be, at least this concerns me, for instance, as does the cluster FS bit, because however hard we've tried, we've not been able to find a stable maintainer for this driver. So what do we think is the level of comfort that we're willing to commit to for this cycle, Carlos?
I would say for the first party drivers, which are the ones we have some sort of control of. I think it's like feasible to have it done during Wallaby. We still need to implement some stuff, but as soon as we do the first parts, the first ones, and we get used to the way we should do this stuff, I think the next ones will become easier. And this comes down to another thing I was like thinking about, which is if we should break these changes into small patches. So we have LVM implemented first, and then we are implementing we start implementing two other drivers. So in this way, we would have more granular changes, and it should be easier to get things merged, and we like helps in the code review process and stuff like that. So what do you guys think about this?
One idea would be to have a table like the feature matrix type table that shows progress for each backend as they get it done, and we can send mail to the OpenStack Discuss or whatever. That way, if somebody has a backend that does not adapt, first that way people can who use it know the risk or not they're getting into, and having it out in public kind of encourages everybody to want to fix up their own backyard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we should have something like that, even if like for some drivers, the migration could or could not be 100% complete with one patch, because if we do want to replace all the LVM commands at once, we would need to replace some things in the container driver as well, since container driver uses LVM. So we should find a way to handle with that. But I'm 100% okay with having something to place the progress and share with other people.
Yeah, that plan makes sense to me. Uh, Great. I mean, I don't know. Definitely look at this as a piecemeal. Definitely start tackling it from the first, easiest driver, and then move it forward. As far as the completion goal goes, then looks like we have support from the rest of the community that we may not complete this goal, as in stop using Rootwrap altogether if the vendor drivers are not participating. Maybe they will participate the next cycle once we're done, and we show how easy it is, or what it takes, whether it's easy or not, to get rid of Rootwrap and start using PrivSep. I will work with you, Carlos, to try and get hold of somebody from the IBM GPFS driver. I mean, I wonder, it's such a big company. I guess somebody ought to be caring about OpenStack out there. Uh, so let's try to identify who that is and see if they can take a look at your patches for one, uh, and see what the feasibility is. And like Tom said, having this in documentation will definitely help the operators. So we begin with, when we weed out the first usage from the first party drivers, we can go ahead and add check marks against all the first party drivers that no longer use Rootwrap, and then leave it only for those drivers that require Rootwrap. So maybe we can suggest that those that distributions that don't care about those other drivers that still use Rootwrap have a way to get rid of Rootwrap dependency. I'm not sure how that's possible, but maybe that's something we'll understand as we do this. Because I think our setup.cfg file needs to stop calling the Rootwrap, stop loading the Rootwrap uh, stuff, and we should actually delete that Rootwrap filters file. I'm not sure what all is involved in the installation process that will be affected, but we'll be able to make that recommendation at the end of this cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we go through this, I do want to ask, what is the operator impact? Is there something you already know that you can share with us with respect to, okay, I'm an operator today running Manila. I have not modified the share filters. I've deployed them, and they all work because, they've been working. So, but tomorrow you're saying we're going to have PrivSep. Should I be maintaining another file? Is there a similar PrivSep filters? And is that something that I need to take and
I I have
build tooling around?
something like some kind of similar on the documentation of the migration regarding the filters and stuff like that, but I haven't gone like deeper on that yet. So I also would like to have some input of you guys right now, some stuff you may know, but that's something I haven't investigated a lot yet.
Yeah, makes sense. But maybe I'll start doing some reading as well and help you with code reviews, and probably we can think of how we want to document this operator impact. I'm sure it's already documented for those projects that did the transition, so we might have something to look at. So that answers my next question as well, as to what the documentation impact is, because this is going to be mostly an operator concern, not an end user concern.
Yeah, I saw a blog post, I think from someone from Nova, or from, if I don't recall correctly from which project it was, but they described the process of the migration and the stuff they have done, and I think that would be that blog post would be pretty useful for us while doing our migration as well, because we can face issues they have already faced, and we can learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just adding an action item for you to link us to it when you can. And what's not in scope, we've discussed this. We're not going to touch the vendor drivers. We're going to give them an opportunity to do that themselves. we might take a call at the end of the Wallaby cycle or the next cycle, right? Is that what we're referring to?
Sorry?
Check. I'm sorry. I think I got a small network disconnect. I meant to ask what's not in scope for this goal. We've already discussed that, which is we're not going to be touching the vendor drivers, not at least until we have the vendor involvement, or maybe we won't even get to that this cycle. And what's not also not in scope, I want to ask, I know that the other teams try to rationalize their usage of sudo as part of this goal. And I think that's a noble goal, except it may not be something that we can get done in this in one cycle if we start doing that as well.
Yes, as I said, the part of the third-party drivers is not in scope, so we do not intend to handle that ourselves. Like for instance, this cycle until we have like vendor entries on this, and I think that the part about like dividing the or rechecking the privilege per pseudo for some users or limiting that stuff was done by some projects, and yeah, I think we should investigate that as well for our context.
So did I type as I read, as you intended to convey? Okay. So yeah, I agree. I mean, many projects took this as an opportunity to rationalize if sudo is required for this command. Can we do without sudo? Can we replace this with a Python package that has some sort of, a workaround to this privilege escalation that we require? So it is definitely noble to have that goal. And if you can do this at a command to command thing, great. But it doesn't require, I mean, to do a one-to-one transition, it's not required for us to also start looking through these privsep commands. We can take another action item to do that. But like you said, if is something we'd encourage you to do uh, based on your bandwidth and stuff.
Good.
And the last is me asking a question for Carlos. Does he have to write a spec for this?
Based on another projects, I haven't like seen other specs regarding that. We could check them for us, but I wouldn't say it's properly like necessary for now. And the only thing they asked is to just add the topic, change the topic to, let me see here, private migration. So it would be like documented, and a story board would be created to track any related patches to the migration. So that's the way they are tracking this stuff. But I spec for at this moment, I wouldn't say it's necessary.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this isn't changing a lot of things for the end users, which we usually prefer writing the specs for, or even drivers. It changes a mode of operation in Manila. So I don't see how a spec will, help anything if beyond the documentation that's available and the one that you're going to write at the end of this for operators. Great. Any other questions, concerns that you have for Carlos? All right, I couldn't hear the question and all this din. It looks like, I mean, for one, I really want to express thanks for picking up this community goal. This is really important to us in terms of project maintenance, as well as to, I mean, community goals are some sort of health checks on us as a community, and for general OpenStack consistency as well. So it's quite important for us to adhere to these, and I'm very glad we have you doing this. Thanks, Carlos.
My pleasure.
Yeah. All right, so let's take any other further questions to code reviews on the work that Carlos is doing. And let's quickly jump on to the next topic, which is system scoped policy and reader role to Manila APIs. This is this is going to be part of a cross project goal as well. And I did start documenting some of these things. So I'm going to be mostly talking through this because I have not put down all of my ideas in this Etherpad, but I will promise you some of these actions are going to be documented and explained before and through me working through this goal. So there's a little bit of context here. So in OpenStack, in the Queen cycle, we took all of the policies that we used to have in a policy.json file. So these are API policies that provide RBACs, rule-based access control, for each of the Manila APIs. So they have they have defaults that the Manila community has thought should be or to be the defaults when we've introduced the APIs, or as we've evolved those APIs. So this policy.json file was something that we would ship along with Manila code. There was always a policy.json file that operators could copy to their installations and modify this file in place. So we realized over a period of time and towards the Queen's release that most operators actually prefer to stick to what the community recommends as policies, and they're rarely changing things for their use cases. At least if the overrides are minimal and the defaults are mostly accepted in most use cases. So we decided to go ahead and move those defaults in code. That way, an operator that needs to override these policies would define a separate file and override only those specific policies that they care to change in their deployment. So this has been working like this since the Queen's release. And since the Queen's release, we also have another significant change. The change is that we've been accepting two formats for this policy file. You could declare it as JSON, or you could declare it as a YAML file. And we don't have a preference between these two files, but you can only have one of these. If you have two of these, by default, it loads the JSON file only because of the history over there, because it was initially just JSON. So right now, as part of this goal, we will be tackling that as one of the issues. Can we support the JSON file going forward? Actually, we can, but we have some issues. So let's talk through those issues, as well as see what this effort's been about. So issue number one about the JSON file and the YAML file. This isn't a JSON versus YAML debate, but very simply, the JSON files were never meant for humans to read or to modify. So technically, we were using a format that we thought tooling would prefer, but at the same time, if we wanted to convey something, like for example, we've deprecated a policy. This is the old deprecated policy, and this is the new one. And we wanted to comment out the old one to suggest that this also works, and this is the fallback if you do not override this policy. There's no way of doing that with a JSON file, because you can't add comments in JSON files. So we would have to figure out another way of another structure for our policies themselves by probably having another deprecated section and have this somehow work with JSON as well as YAML or something like that. So that's one of the concerns, and of course the further concern is that the human readability, the modifiability aspect of it is the experience is better with YAML. So this is the wisdom of the community. We have nothing to uh, you know um, complain about as far as I'm thinking. The, the the point though is I did suggest that this be tackled as a community goal through the Wallaby cycle, and they're doing that. I think I didn't link the community goal aspect to it, but I can pull up that right now. And the transition over there is pretty simple. Uh, this is the community goal. Just going to add a link to it on the Etherpad. My Etherpad's expired on me. All right. So the transition over there is for Oslo policy to start accepting policy.yaml as the default file and not policy.json. So if you have two files in the same installation, policy.yaml will be preferred over policy.json. And also for us, the Manila community, to add an upgrade check that will log a warning in case policy.json is found, and the warning will also link to a tool which will allow operators to easily convert their policy.json files into policy.yaml. And we will be able to, when all projects have deprecated this, Oslo policy is going to stop supporting policy.json as a possible replacement, and that might happen a cycle or two from now. But so it's a very simple contained community goal, which I think somebody with maybe a couple of hours can commit to Manila and get done. So I'm less worried about this aspect of it, because it just I mean, you could look at the Nova example in this, or the Cyborg example that are linked in this community goal, to get an idea of what the changes. So it has an operator impact. We are going to have an upgrade impact. We're not breaking anything. We're only conveying our intent to break this in a few cycles, or maybe the next cycle, depending on how things go. The second aspect of that of this change is to do a system scoped policy. And what this means is to separate the administrator role that we currently have into two kinds of administrators. Administrators that are across the cloud. They are aware of all of the deployment. They have access to logs, etc. And they are the ones that have deployed the cloud, or are operating the cloud. And the second kind of an admin is a project level admin. So what we're doing over here is splitting this stuff into saying there are some project administration tasks. Like, for example, I want to reset the state of a volume or a share. Do I really need to be a system level administrator to do that? Probably not. If I'm a privileged user that can reset this, that's great. That I can do this. And you also provide the operator of these clouds the flexibility to define what roles are system level, and what roles are project level. Maybe an operator like, let's say a large cloud like SAP decides, I want project level administrators to be able to modify share types. It's a great feature to have for project admins, because they can just go ahead and create their own share types and maybe request the capabilities that they want. And of course, they will not have access to the backends themselves, so they may not be able to discover all the backend capabilities. But whatever Manila APIs are concerned, a project level admin can now grab the capabilities list and create a share type on their own. They don't need to bother the system level administrator. So that's the kind of
So
distinction that we'd
it
like.
got them a question about the project level admins, are there rights scoped to objects within that Keystone project or not? In other words, say I can reset state on shares.
Yes.
Can I do it on another project, another tenant's shares, or
No,
only
you
on
can't.
my
So exactly, you can't. So a system level administrator can discover all of the, let's say, I mean, these are policies that they can modify and change. But let's say we as as the Manila community decide, a system level administrator can see all resources that are there on the cloud. They can list all tenants' shares. They can modify quotas for different tenants. They can modify. They can reset state. They can migrate. They can do a bunch of things as system level administrators. But as project level administrators, you're limited to seeing all the shares that your users have created. You're limited to modifying states for your users within your project and not any other project. We couldn't
I
do
think
this
that's
before.
the right model. I agree. I just wanted to get it explicit.
Yep.
Now, for objects that are shared across projects, one would not be able to do it because it could impact users in other projects as well, right? So if I have a share type and it's private to my project, then I can create them, I can update them, etc. if I'm an administrator for that project. But if there is a share type that's public and used by all projects, then as a project administrator in a particular project, I'm not going to be able to modify that because it would impact others.
No, yeah, exactly. So that's the sort of thing that we need to audit. That specific use case is a great one, for instance, that, for example, we allow project administrators to create and delete share types. Can they delete something that other projects are using? We shouldn't let them do that. So if it's a shared share type, maybe then the project administrators can only remove access from their project, if anything, but they cannot delete this resource or modify it in any way and stuff. So that would be something that we would have to make changes to in that particular API. And maybe we begin with saying this is a system scope role, and then we go ahead and modify that API as through this cycle, or maybe as we discover that.
Yeah, so the cycle goal really puts the infrastructure in for project administrators, but does not necessarily convert every possible thing that might make sense to have project administration, as I understand it.
Exactly.
Because
Yes.
some of those may be tricky, some of them may require quite a bit of thought, so we keep them at system scope until we know how to do them cleanly and correctly. Others may be trivial, make and easy to make project scoped administrators for.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. So this goal is to first default, first provide the mechanism to just be able to create these system and these project level administrators, to be able to use this particular scope aspect from Keystone, which Keystone has supported this for a couple of cycles now. So if we are able to use that with Manila, because today Manila doesn't understand that scope, it just looks at the context and asks if the policy can be enforced at this admin level, and we don't distinguish between a system admin and a project admin. So when we default some of these rules, where we might default them to a system scope to err on the side of caution, and then audit that API and see whether we can allow project administrators to have some more granularity than a system scope admin role, than requiring a system scope admin role, if that makes sense. So part of this thing is to take a look at these 158 API policies that are currently there, and create this new system scoped administrator as well as system scoped a reader. So what is this reader aspect is another keystone role that was introduced a few cycles ago. A reader is somebody that has read-only access to the cloud. So the intent is to provide observing tools that are built for observability, etc., to be able to just list resources, look at a resource, etc., and not really modify them. So if you want to allow, let's say, share listing to a reader, you could do so without giving them access to create or delete shares or modify these shares, update them or migrate them, whatever you want to do, without being able to affect the shares in any way. Just get a list or see the metadata of the share. So this transition with the reader can happen at the same time as this whole aspect of project and system scope users. So that's why it's clubbed with this goal, because we as a project we now are expanding the default roles that we had. We used to have a regular project unprivileged member role and a admin role. So now we're able to split that into an admin that can be at system scope or at a project scope, and a regular member that can be at that can be a reader or a general member that we currently have. So and you could even have a reader at the system scope. So you can think of that as a system administrator who just has read-only permissions. Somebody that can list everybody's shares, sure, but that is something without having permissions to modify any of these resources, but at the system scope. So that's the other aspect of this goal. So there are two things that are mixed in this. So my intent is to write a document first, to explain. Maybe have a table of what our current policies are and what we intend to transition them to, including these base policies that we have. Our base policies are, we care about members and admins, and we care about owners and non-owners. So we take these base policies that we have and we convert this into this new world where we have system admins and project admins. We have system readers and regular readers within a project. And we have this older member role that we want to preserve. And of course, tie this with the aspect of being owners versus non-owners for these resources. It isn't too complicated a task, because there are definitely examples that we can look at from Nova, Cyborg, Keystone, etc., where this work has been completed, and in Cinder, where I saw this work was begun yesterday. But what we definitely need to pay attention to is to test, because we currently the best way to test this is through unit tests, because it probably you want to add 10 different scenarios to test a particular thing, and it's not possible to do that with functional tests in a scalable way. So we will investigate the functional test aspect of it, maybe with the dummy driver and using this Tempest tooling called Patrol. But that, I don't want to get there without first writing exhaustive unit tests and making sure that when we transition this, we're not breaking somebody. Yes, we will be changing some policies. That is going to be expected as a part of this cycle, but we will not. We will deprecate and not make a random change that does not support the previous default. Does that make sense? Okay, so this isn't a community goal as a whole. The part of the community goal here is very small, which is the scope of the community goal is very small. The community goal is just intending to change the default from policy.json to policy.yaml. But I want us to start working on this, and I'm happy to have collaborators and definitely in terms of code review, and definitely take a look at that spec that we want to write, defining our system scoped administrators versus project scoped administrators, what our opinions are as the Manila community as we audit each one of these 158 APIs that we currently have. So I need help with all of that, as well as if you're willing to take parts of this. This is also one of those things that we can do as a piecemeal, and roll all of our APIs one by one. So please reach out, and I'm happy to take your help for this. Um, and pretty much it, I guess. So the reason also is this is good pre-work. Should this become a community goal in X, we at least are in a better place than we are we usually are with community goals. Any questions with this? I know one of the issues that we were discussing in the policy room the other day. I can I can give you a short recap of this, and I think the session itself is linked elsewhere. If it's not, I can link it. One of the things was the deprecations were far too many. So Gansham, who worked on the NOVA piece for this, NOVA has over 250 policies, so at least 100 more than what we do. And they audited their whole API, and they decided there were many things that ought to change from system scope to project scope as the default. So so as they implemented it, they went ahead and started adding a bunch of deprecation warnings. So those that upgraded to that version of Nova just saw this wall of deprecations go by when they executed Nova manage, or when they restarted the services and looked at their logs and stuff. So they are exploring as right now to have a capability in Oslo policy to disable these deprecation warnings, so that operators have had the opportunity to look at them, and then if they're annoyed with it, or they're going to go act on it, they can go ahead and disable them with the help of a configuration option. We went a little deeper and said, should we always allow disabling deprecation warnings for Oslo policy as a whole? And I don't think the people in the room were in favor of that. They're only in favor of um, ignoring deprecation warnings for changes in the default values, but not to the policies themselves. Should a new policy be written with, let's say the name of the policy changes, etc., deprecation warnings cannot be disabled for those sort of changes. If you're using an older policy name, and the policy name has changed, you will not be able to disable that warning. You have to acknowledge the change in order to disable that warning. But for when the default changes, because we understand that many operators might be okay with the defaults that we define, they might not want to override them just to get rid of the deprecation warnings. We will go ahead and provide a way to disable those deprecation warnings. I know this problem is hard to understand, but I think in that Etherpad somebody linked to a bug for it. So I'll link you to this when I write up the minutes for this talk. Any questions so far? Concerns? Statements of hate, support? All right, I think we're doing well on time so far, and it's time to take another break, I think. Just give me 1 second to adjust the stuff here. So we are at 15:40. We have already begun leaching into Victoria's time for the CephFS update, but Vicky, can we take a small break before we get there?
Yeah, of course.
Great. Okay. So it'll be another 12-minute break, folks. I like ending stuff 2 minutes earlier. So let's kick off another 12-minute break.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Let me repeat myself. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be talking to Victoria right now regarding CephFS updates. So, Vicky, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Gotham. So there is an Interop for this topic in particular. I put a link on the planning. Let me get that to the other one. Oh, do you have it? Cool. Okay. So I tried to make a summary on all the things that happened between last PTG and today, actually, and try to identify where are the gaps, what needs to be done, and try to put some dates to what we want to do. So the first link that you're going to see here is the PTG Etherpad for last cycle. In there, we started drafting what we wanted to accomplish. We have two features we want in Manila. One is creation from a snapshot on CephFS drivers for both CephFS native and CephFS NFS. And the other one, it was about updating drivers to Ceph Manager instead of using the old, soon to be deprecated Ceph Volume client. So another part of the work that needed to be done was to update the current desktop plugin Ceph, which is what basically we have running in our CI. This is key, and I put that as a priority since we want to get, well, we want to test what we have in abstract before actually maybe making any change. It took a lot of time, to be honest. Nobody was taking care of this plugin, so we have a lot of dead code in there. We have a lot of things to update, including changing the sources we were using. We were using something that is called Shaman, that the Ceph community used to build packages, but seems that it was some sort of playground for them. So there was not, the packages that we have in there were not so reliable. So now we are using the repositories that are being maintained by the Ceph community and the NFS Ganesha community for both Ubuntu and which is what we have on the gate, and Fedora. Also, we have to bump the versioning of what we were testing. We were testing Luminous, which I think it's end of life already, and NFS Ganesha 2.7. Which is end of life now. Basically, we need to push it at least to Nautilus, so we could start testing the snapshot features that started to be present in this version. So we bumped the version to Nautilus, and now we are testing with a newer version of NFS Ganesha, which is NFS Ganesha 3.3. We have been doing this on Focal now, so that is the current status. We are hitting some issues on this front for NFS Ganesha. I'm working on debugging this because we are seeing the scenario test failing. I test everything manually and it's working with the current code as we have in Manila. But for some reason we have our scenario test broken. So I'm manually debugging this. I'm kind of suspicious of the Fuse client. We have had problems in the past. So that is what I'm currently up to. We also need to talk about the AIM versioning, like which versions for each of the components we are going to be testing in the next cycle. I have in mind that we will need to start testing with Octopus, which is the master version right now in Ceph, and with NFS Ganesha 3.3. This is, take it with a grain of salt because understanding the compatibility matrix between the different services is not so trivial. Like I have talked with Ceph folks and with NFS Ganesha folks, and it's like, okay, which version I should be using for Octopus? And they say, I don't know, we are using master. It's like, it is not very clear if there is a advice versioning matrix we should take in mind. Like I would rather have this clear before actually moving forward. But well, before actually moving to newer versions, the advice combination of Ceph and Ganesha was Luminous with NFS Ganesha 2.7. Now we stick with the master versions, and well, for the future versioning, we still need to figure this out. So this is an action item I put on like near the end. I will cover this again after. So what is the status apart from the CI of the implementation of these two features? So we have gaps on Ceph Manager, and we need to implement those gaps before actually moving forward implementation on the Manila side. I put some links to the Ceph tracker for the 3 different tickets we need to finish before actually working on the Manila side. The first one is update access to share, the access or deny access to a share. This one is blocking well, both of the features, but in particular create share from a snapshot. Since like we can right now with the code as is, we can create a share, make a snapshot using like Ceph Manager, but we cannot allow or deny access to that share. So basically we can create the share, but we cannot access or deny access to it. So it's the same as not having anything there. So we need to first implement this one in order to advance with create share from a snapshot. There is a fix that is already up for review. This was submitted a couple of weeks ago. An action item for me is that, well, I will be testing this with Master Ceph and Master Manila. So I will let you know what I can find about that, but this is quite recent, so I will get back to it, and hopefully I can have a better summary of which is the status of that feature in particular in the upcoming weeks. There are other 2 features that we are missing on the Ceph side. One is fetch a list of auth IDs that have access to a subvolume, and the other one is display the total and free capacity of a single file system, volume file system. These 2 are required for the second feature I mentioned, apart from the first feature that we are missing for Ceph Manager. In order to complete the implementation of the update, the CephFS drivers for Manila, in order to move from the current Ceph volume library we are using to use Ceph Manager and stop having both of the clients on our code base, we need to get those done as well. So there are many moving parts. So I will open for a question after I cover some of the schedule I have in mind, but I hope I'm making sense. So a schedule. Okay, the main point that we need to close before the milestone 1. Milestone 1 is like right around the corner, is November 30, December 4, is to try to get a decent answer on the compatibility matrix between Ceph, NFS Ganesha, and Manila. Try to understand that if it's advised to use Ceph Octopus with whichever version of NFS Ganesha, and make sure that this works, like the combination of upstream upstream Manila and Ceph Octopus, which whatever NFS Ganesha version works as expected, and we don't have any compatibility issue between the other, between the components that make the backend. That's something I want to get clarification as soon as possible. And the other one is the CI. I want to see the CI working. I am getting closer, like CephFS native is working, like we haven't seen any failures since a long time ago. So I assume that the update didn't change anything on what we have on CephFS native, but I still need to figure out what is going on with CephFS and NFS Ganesha. As mentioned, I'm testing this locally in my environment. Currently, it's failing with Tempest, and it's failing locally with the scenarios if I run that in my local environment. But manually, if I create a share with these versions and, well, mount the share, write stuff in there, it works. So there must be something with Tempest I need to figure out. But I want to get this done by milestone 1. And for milestone 2, which is January 18 and January 22 from next year, I'm trying to see that we can get the update access to share on the CephFS side merge. That is the patch that I mentioned you earlier that is already up for review. With that, get the create share from a snapshot merge on Manila. That will be the initial feature that I want to, I try to put as a goal to get merged. And for milestone 3, being very, very optimistic, I must clarify that. That is for March 8 to March 12. I would like to see if we can get on the CephFS side the fetch a list of author IDs that have access to a subvolume and display the total and free capacity of a single file system, volume file system, merge, and also get the update CephFS drivers to use Ceph Manager, both CephFS native and CephFS NFS Ganesha. But I'm saying that I'm being very optimistic because for this case, we need to get, the Ceph team working in these 2 features, and it may depend on the priorities they have. So that is the current situation, and I would like to open for questions if you have any concerns, and if there is anything I should clarify. Yeah, that's it. Let me know.
Yeah, not questions or concerns, but just want to commend the work you're doing, especially on defining the support matrix. It does baffle me that some, Ceph as a product does not maintain such a support matrix. So it kind of is, and that it falls on us to fill that gap. But if you do work that out, it probably is going to be beneficial to not just the Manila community, but also other Ceph users as well. So great thoughts on that. And if there's anything we can do to help, let us know. And this is a lot of work, and I know it was kind of what is that disappointing in terms of understanding the Ceph product, the Ceph roadmap, and then the Manila roadmap, and how we have to match all of them and stuff to get things done. So I share your frustrations, and
Yeah, it has been an
I want to
interesting
encourage you.
But yeah,
Yep.
it's good. I mean, a lot of learning to trying to understand and trying to articulate between the 3 communities, because it's OpenStack and NFS Ganesha and Ceph, and each of us have different deadlines, have different priorities, and have different understanding on the use cases. So I really hope that we can come to a decent, agreement for each of us and get, to that schedule I proposed. But yeah, that's it.
Makes sense. Any thoughts, concerns? So one thing that Vicky called out is that she'll be working on testing with Octopus. That is what we are aiming for in this cycle. So last cycle we announced that we will not support Ceph Luminous any longer with the Victoria release. So it may be time for us to announce that Ceph Nautilus is also not supported from, let's say, whether this is the Wallaby release or the X release that's coming up. So, but this is setting the roadmap for that, right? Because as we advance to test the newer and the latest versions of Ceph, we don't have a choice but to drop testing for the older versions of Ceph.
Agree. I want to highlight though that we made a great advancement in the last cycle, even though we probably there is no new feature, no actually new feature, but on the DevSoft plugin Ceph side, we went from, I think it was Hammer or something like that, like a really old version up to Nautilus, and now we are moving to Octopus, which is currently master. So it's a relief that our driver is working as expected with the newer Ceph versions, but definitely we want to keep moving forward and start adding all the new features that are being provided on the Ceph side, because there are a lot of things that we are missing out because of this. So considering, you know, new features and performance enhancements and so on. So yeah, looking forward to keep this updated and keep adding new stuff on Manila side.
Awesome. Thanks, Vicky. Anyone else has any comments, concerns, feedback for Victoria, offers of help, or candies? All right. It looks like, I mean, the community is definitely supportive of the work that you're doing, um, certainly, and we thank you for it. In any case, if you're looking for reviewers or any help with respect to code, or even to advocate to an adjacent community, whether it's NFS Ganesha or with Ceph, you know, you can always reach out and ask. Great.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. So it's a wrap for that topic. Thank you so much, Victoria. And let's go back and discuss our next topic, which we're 3 minutes early, but I see Amy is on the call already. So I want to say hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us. And let me actually give you a short introduction. I'm wondering if, hold on a second. Oh yeah, okay. Thanks, Victoria, for the PTG bot stuff. All right. So I don't have an Etherpad for this, so we'll start taking notes right here. And Amy's been sending email to the OpenStack Discuss mailing list, and as we're all aware, I mean, there has been a movement in the tech community to try and shed some bad negative practices, as we have all agreed, especially in open source communities such as ours, where we have no intention to alienate anyone. Or rather, the better way to put that would be, we really want to be as inclusive and as diverse as possible, because we understand the strengths of those of having a diverse contributor base, and we do not associate ourselves with any sort of divisive ideologies that might be there, and we think that has no place in this sort of a collaborative platform or community. So to that effect, Amy has been leading the work in the OpenStack community to define what our stance is as the OpenStack, as the Open Infra Foundation. So her work extends beyond the OpenStack projects, of which, you know, there are like tens of them, and then it also goes to the Airship, Kata containers, and other adjacent communities that are also part of the Open Infra Foundation. So I see Amy, so I just want to say hi, introduce you, and if you want to speak, the floor is yours.
Alrighty, I had to find my mouse so I could actually unmute.
Awesome.
So basically, I'm just here to answer any questions that anyone might have. So we've been working within the Diversity and Inclusion Working Group and anyone who showed up at our open meetings on the stance. And the stance itself is pretty much done as far as feedback. But now, based on feedback from the forum, we are putting together a list of words. We were being broader and saying if it related to master slave and the relationship to slavery, versus master being the main branch, master degree, master craftsman, and so on. So we're trying to make sure that we just don't basically go out there and search and replace everywhere master is, because sometimes master is the correct word. Also blacklist, whitelist, O apparently has implemented various replacements based on the context of the use. So again, we're trying to put out words that we think are troublesome and possible replacements that the groups could use based on feedback from the groups themselves. But ultimately, timeline, choice of words, and so on are going to be determined by the various technical groups. So the OpenStack TC can say, okay, we want this as a community goal for this release, and we hope to get this far along. Airship, Kata, again, will have the control within their groups. So the board and the working group aren't saying, you must do this within the next year, because it may not be feasible, especially for larger projects like OpenStack. But our hope also is, after we get the stance and the list of suggested words, is to come up with criteria for newer projects joining the foundation so that they start on the right foot. And, you know, so that 2 years down the road, they don't realize they have bad words and now have to go back and change it. It's also important to note that we are consumers of projects that are more upstream than us, such as Git, MariaDB, MySQL, and there will be dependencies and timelines affected by when those groups choose to make changes. And most of these groups are currently, Git is just starting to look at it. So just because GitHub is moving to use main versus master, Git hasn't made a decision and may not choose main as their word. So we will find out, you know, what these other groups are using that we are consumers of, and then it makes sense to adopt those words. One thing Glance did actually a couple years ago is they removed the word slave from their interface. And that is something that, if it's user focused, but not necessarily calling on something that is being used upstream, we can make the replacements in code, not code, but documentation interface without affecting code if we need to. If someone did want to replace the word slave in relationship to a database, they could make the change in the documentation as far as describing the concept and everything else, but with the realization that when they demonstrate the code command, that they would have to use the word slave until our upstream databases change it and we implement it. So again, we realize we can't change everything overnight. We do have dependencies that we do not control. So that is the basic overall explanation of the stance and where the board stands and where the working group stands, as far as we're here to help you. We're not here to force you. And I think that's important. And where some groups may be seeing resistance within their communities is because open source developers don't like to be told what to do. So that's why we feel that it's important that the technical groups control the timeline and the changes themselves. Any questions?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Certainly sets the tone for what we need to do as a team. I mean, we do, as in the Manila team, look up to the technical committee to drive project-wide changes, especially because there are a lot of interdependencies between the Manila project and other projects in the OpenStack space, as well as you said, upstream projects like Talks, Git, etc., that we rely on, including the databases and things. So if I mean the specific example that you used, if I don't suppose we have any usage of that in the Manila space. We don't refer to any of the components as slaves as such, for instance. So but we might have other concerns, and this is where I really want all of us to look at it as a team and keep your eyes open, right? Because we are all aware of the of what the community feels, and so bring this to our knowledge, because many a times we are not from some sort of a uniform culture here, or from the same country or from the same time zone. So if something is not feeling welcome to you, please do let us know, and we'll figure out how as a community we can fix that, because that was probably there because there was no intention to put it there.
Right. I mean, no one intentionally put these words out there, and no one's intentionally leaving them there either. We do have a special session tomorrow at 1700 UTC with Joanne O'Flynn, who's a technical writer from Red Hat, because apparently we may not have any actual technical writers still within the community. But because Brian Rosamata had the question of using they in a sentence. For example, you realize that there is foobar and well, let me pull it up because I'm not wording it right, because it was interesting. The user flubbed the foobar and now these should call support. Now, to me, that reads correctly. And I believe that is correct in technical writing and trying to be as gender neutral as possible. But in the past, many years ago, it might have been the user flubbed the foobar, now he, she should call support. So it's a grammar aspect of having a plural used as a singular. So we're going to have that meeting tomorrow, just discuss whether that is correct and the best uses for things like that. So questions that you might have in wording that a technical writer would know, versus what has historically been correct grammar-wise. So we are going to have that session so we can ask an actual technical writer these type of questions and get answers.
Great. Thank you for putting that together. I think we have meta documents such as the one that we referred to in the other session, even in the Manila community, as to what to do and what kind of writing style to use and such. So we've been avoiding naming pronouns like that. So but then there might be other interesting questions that we definitely want to attend and understand.
Yeah, because something doesn't come to mind to us as an individual. Like someone pointed, Katie pointed out, segregate. Well, you segregate things. So that's no longer a word that we should use if possible. So now it would become separate, which I can never spell correctly the first time around. So, there are, when different people look at things, we come up with more words, unfortunately, just because what is commonplace in American English versus British English, is also going to affect things. So we're going to try to come up with the best set of words to replace things. And if we have questions where we just didn't think of words and someone comes up with it later, the D&I working group will be available. And if we need to pull in other resources to confirm whether it's a bad word or a good word, et cetera, we will do so. So
Great.
I'm here for any questions. Otherwise, I'll probably slip back into OOO.
Yes. So anyone else has questions, concerns, feedback? We should do this. We shouldn't do this. This is when we should do this.
The when is going to be a problem. I mean, admittedly. Yeah. And that's why the board didn't want to control that type of thing for all the projects, that it needs to be the technical groups within the projects because they know the scope and what it's going to take. And for smaller projects, it can probably work quicker than we can.
So one of the things I just took from this, correctly or not, is that we may want to scan our user-facing documentation kind of first, or prioritize that. Doesn't mean don't look at the non-user facing stuff, because that's what people are going to see, and also maybe some of the easiest places to say, are we saying something here that'll scare people, drive some people off, even unintentionally, and if so, we may be able to change it with fewer dependencies on other upstream stuff and so on.
Yeah, I mean,
so
documentation is always the easiest to change. So yeah, it's a good place to start. The little experience I had with the Manila interface during Grace Hopper, I didn't see anything that you would need to change within your UI. But yeah, you could check your documentation and see if there's anything there. And one other point to be made is you do not need to backport all your changes. It's more of a, we've made this stance going forward, we're making changes. So you don't need to go back to like Rocky and Stein and train and make changes.
I guess the other thing I'd just add quickly is that, you know, as important as this initiative is, it's just part of the story. And, you know, so some people get all excited about rules. And I just say, you know, I think I'm patting ourselves on the back a little bit, but I really like the way the Manila community, the people I work with here, are very welcoming. And I think that comes across to people in terms of developers and stuff. So we just need to keep doing that too, improve on that, of course. But
yeah, OpenStack is one of the most inclusive, welcoming groups that I've been involved in. And this is just one new aspect to make sure that we remain that way.
And Amy, thank you for, it's probably not necessarily the most fun work, but so thank you.
You're welcome.
You're herding cats, but these are sometimes willing cats, but it's still herding cats. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else anybody has for me? And I'm always reachable. Amy@demarco.com, Amy@redhat.com, spots on IRC. So feel free to reach out. And our official mailing list is the foundation mailing list. I try not to send a whole lot of email there only because of everybody's on foundation, and just one Z on IRC. 2 Z's and an underscore on Twitter because I couldn't get my name, but.
See, that's how I got confused.
Well, I do have spots with 2 Z's on GitHub, and then they gave me my spots with 1 Z because the other person was a squatter. I'm still hoping on Twitter that I'll get my 1 Z. But yep, feel free to reach out, and if you need me to come back, just ping me and I'll come back over.
Thank you so much, Amy. I
Welcome.
think we'll take this discussion forward. If somebody wants to volunteer to begin this transition, to add your name. I mean, this is evolving, as we can tell. When we want to do this is also up to discussion. So we can definitely touch back on this as we learn more from the TC, from the rest of the OpenStack projects, as well as what our own, you know, if somebody is volunteering to fix their documentation, we'll welcome it right away. So let's take it like that and discuss this at an upcoming meeting as well.
All right, take care all.
Thanks, Amy. All right, so let's switch to our next topic and our last topic today, and we are doing great on time today. And so this is another project team sort of topic, and me actually, so you can actually see me. So the this one's on the OSF Interop, and it's going to be me talking to you about everything that we learned about this whole effort and such. So some of you may be familiar with what Interop stands for. At the very beginning, the goal for the Interop team was to establish the answer to the question, what is OpenStack and what can be called OpenStack? It's very funny because I mean, on one aspect we really want to say we are OpenStack, everybody is welcome, and the other aspect is so hard to determine what exactly should be OpenStack, what is not really considered OpenStack. So you guys go away, I mean, build in your own space, etc., etc. So there's a bunch of history associated with this. What began as defining the core of OpenStack, without which OpenStack cannot work, or cannot be called OpenStack, is now rebranded and evolved over a period of time to become the OSF Interop group. So if you've heard the words DevCore, something, an elusive community that Manila could not be part of for a while. I mean, that word, by the way, is banned. You will not see that mentioned in any meetings. Maybe it's just there at the back of people's minds, and bad memories. But that's where the Interop community took its birth from. So technically, the aspects that remained are those that still want to say, when I'm talking OpenStack APIs, I'm going to get a consistent response, whether I'm talking to an OpenStack that's running in, let's say, SAP, or running in, let's say, on City Network, or on Vex host, or when you deploy a Red Hat OpenStack platform, or use canonical, Ubuntu OpenStack, etc. So technically, you're trying to tie a story of consistency across all of these. That yes, while this software is heavily customizable, as a user you can expect this consistency when you're executing a core set of APIs. So this isn't the same dev core aspect of core. It is by saying that each of these project teams that are building these OpenStack software will define a set of APIs that are meant to work the same across these different clouds. And how do we enforce that? We enforce that with the help of Tempest, as we've been doing from day one of project testing here in Manila. Tempest is still going to be our source of truth of talking to these APIs. And the Interop group has, like I said, historically covered the other major projects. I'm going to call them Nova, Cinder, Glance, Neutron, and I guess telemetry to some extent. But it did not have coverage for Heat, Designate, Manila, and all the other parts of the open infrastructure, because they thought their mission was around these core, so-called core projects, things that just broke out of nowhere, as a thing, and including Swift, I guess. But right now, they wanted to change their mission into, and for the past few cycles, their mission is to make sure that anything that a project team is working on that is adopted by a wider community and deployed as OpenStack ought to be feeling and looking like the same thing. And this is something that the project teams ought to own up to as well. Like the Manila team has to go work with the Interop community to define these capabilities that we want, these APIs that we think ought to work the same across different versions of OpenStack. There are some rules to this. The Interop team has defined that this level of consistency is only going to be for 3 releases of OpenStack. So whatever API we say, for example, I want to create a share, and the user sends a request to an OpenStack that's working on, an OpenStack train release, to an OpenStack Victoria release, to an OpenStack Usuri release, three separate releases, three past releases of ours, and it ought to work the same. That's what the concept behind this is, and we are and we as a team are actually going to be responsible for defining what are these interactions. So I just mentioned creating a share. So we could probably call, updating a share, deleting a share, listing shares as common patterns across these clouds. And we're also responsible to define which exact tests have we written or we maintain that that can establish the consistency, right? So that's the ask from the project team. And as I said, the Interop team really is supportive for getting Manila into the Interop space, because again, their mission has changed. It is to make sure that they support every deliverable that the OpenStack project teams have. Um, and as well, they are looking at Manila as a integral piece for the infrastructure space that is evolving. As we all know, one of the biggest use cases for Manila is Kubernetes workloads or container workloads in general. And Thomas pitched this over and over again in a lot of different forums that I mean, Manila storage is probably the most natural thing that one would think of when thinking container workloads, right? Anybody that wants to read write many volumes in a self-service fashion and all the benefits that Manila brings, it is hard to miss and stuff. So the Interop team recognizes this and wants to first put in the basic set of Manila interactions as part of the OpenStack interoperability, and then allow the Manila team, along with the rest of the OpenStack team, to add the Kubernetes specific, or rather container workload specific tests. So step number one is to make sure Manila APIs are tested. Step number two is probably to make sure that we're able to run end-to-end tests such that somebody who is using the Manila CSI driver can actually pass and qualify that their implementation of the Manila CSI driver, or rather their deployment of Manila CSI, behaves the same as any other and stuff. So this Etherpad was basically to pitch to the Interop team what our capabilities are and our initial thoughts on what we want to do with Interop. Vida and I were in the Interop room. Victoria was there as well, and I think Liron will be working with us as well. So these are the basic set of commands we've identified from lines 63 to 66. We are first going to begin with very basic create, retrieve, update, delete shares, create, retrieve, update, delete networks, create, retrieve, delete access rules, and extending and shrinking shares. This is going to be the basic set of APIs that we'll be adding coverage for as part of the Interop tests. And we take it forward from there. This is for the upcoming advisory. We have no plans, at least this what we've conceived so far, to add any further steps. But this is where we need your help as the Manila community. Vet this. What do you think about this? And I'm not sure if I touched upon why we care about this, but that's a very valid question to ask. Do we care about this? But because I asked that question, let me continue. Why do we care about Interop, and not the other way around? Why does Interop care about Manila? I told you that piece. Why do we care about Interop as such? Well, to one extent, we've had 10 production releases and several users, several large users, and consistent users and such. And nobody has ever come back to us as a project team and said, you ought to go add Interop testing. No users have asked us for Interop testing as such. But there is this drive from the Interop team that seems attractive, at least to me, which is to define a set of common capabilities is actually a noble mission. And every product really does this. You see this as a part of the governance for Kubernetes as well, for any other major project that you're aware of. So this sort of basic end-to-end testing as a whole is actually a desirable goal for every major open source community, because things are open source. You can go ahead and change it. and make things different. But can somebody that's using your service expect that consistency? That seems like a good goal for us as a team to have. Second, I don't want us to be left behind in any sense of you know, hey, this is OpenStack, and then I mean, whoever's pitching that idea, because that seems to be something that keeps coming up wherever interop is used. Interop somehow defines this is OpenStack. So if they care about us, I think we have every reason to care about us being part of this is OpenStack story, especially because this might give us more publicity, more users, more contributors, and somehow grow our community as well. So we might, for the pain that we are taking to write and maintain these tests, actually get back in terms of increased user base as well as contributors. And there is another aspect of consistency. One of the aspects that Interop is focusing on is there's compute and there's storage. And there is actually 3 classes of storage that is Swift, Cinder, and Manila, object, block, and file. And well, they have defined the capabilities for object and block. We are not defining the capabilities for file, which kind of leaves it for open to contentious implementations in the future that might not be for our advantage. So that's another reason to care, because we have pioneered this. We've been doing the work, so might as well go establish the patterns that we have set forward. I do see some chat, so I'm going to just pop up. More money. Well, if the checks are written directly to us, that would be a great reason.
Yay, adoption.
At least you get more exposure, Gotham. Get a lot of exposure. A lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll walk in right with our sunscreens into this limelight that is shining on us. Great.
Thank you for interfacing with these folks and driving this. I, you know, as you know, but maybe other people don't, I'm a big believer in this. You know, you can take an attitude, well, it's just a label, it's just superficial or something like that. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a consumer with all these different projects that are called OpenStack and not knowing how they go together or how they fit together, being able to see something that's a consistent group of things that work together that has an OpenStack label on it is I think pretty powerful. So I support it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. In an aspect, just what you said, I mean, not stroking your back, but just saying this is a continuation of what we were doing for years. I mean, if Tom's PTL or Gotham's PTL, the vision's not changed. That we really want to keep growing this community and the contributor base while we're working on the cool problems that we're solving. So let me just bring out a couple of other specifics here. This Interop team is aiming at 2 separate labels. They at least have 2 of them right now. One is called an OpenStack powered, and the other is OpenStack compatible. And what OpenStack powered means that this is what we just discussed. So let's take, for example, City Network, Vex Host, and probably Deutsche Telekom or something, right? 3 public clouds that you have access to OpenStack APIs from, and so these would be allowed to use the OpenStack powered trademark program if they're able to pass this set of tests that the OpenStack team has determined as the core capabilities. And what is OpenStack compatible? It is not these deployers of OpenStack, but the vendors of OpenStack. So OpenStack compatible is a label that can apply to NetApp, Dell EMC, Infinidat, whatever other vendors that we have in the Manila ecosystem. They can actually brand their products as OpenStack compatible. So if NetApp cares about, here's storage system X that we're introducing to the market, they can actually say this is OpenStack compatible because we have passed the minimum set of tests or the standard tests that the OpenStack team has determined to grab this particular trademark and stuff. And that goes with saying, okay, we are OpenStack compatible for file provisioning. We're OpenStack compatible for block provisioning. We're OpenStack compatible for object storage in the storage space. But you can think of that and extend that to, hypervisors, network, backends, and so on. And if you want to look at equivalences, I know if you've been a vendor that ever did a Red Hat OpenStack certification, it's a lot like that. Red Hat has a very similar ecosystem of partners, people that certify their software and their hardware against Red Hat OpenStack. So this is a lot like that, except this is an upstream effort, and these labels are given to you by the OpenStack Foundation. So what should you do as vendors? Probably nothing. There is, when we add these tests in RefStack, you would run them and gain the, and submit them. I have linked the RefStack website, I think, up here, but it's refstack.openstack.org. And this is where people go to submit their compatibility results. You can basically sign in and you can take a look at the guidelines. This is the current advisory that's available. It is based on the Usuri release of OpenStack, and these are the capabilities that are getting tested. These are basically the APIs that are getting tested and how many tests are associated with those capabilities. And you can also see those that have uploaded their results, and they're anonymized. You cannot see who has uploaded them, I guess, but you just see an UUID. And when you see that label that says OpenStack powered, you know that they have at some point submitted their results here and have been maintaining their consistency, their compatibility to this set of guidelines. So when we add our guidelines, it becomes part of this web page, and you will see Manila tests show up here as well. And we are targeting the next guideline. Right now, it's going to load something which isn't ready yet, but we are targeting the 2020.11 guideline, something that I need to talk to Vida and Leron in the coming weeks and start working on. But to give you a preview of what that might look like, there are a couple of links at the bottom of this Etherpad where other teams have worked on their own set of tests. There is the DNS add-on, and there is the heat orchestration add-on. So our set of tests or our proposal is going to be very similar to this patch. We are definitely identifying a smaller set of tests than the other services, but this is just as a starting point. We can improve and update these tests from release to release. All right, I am done rambling on. Are there any questions, concerns, suggestions left to discuss? as I said, the future is to make sure that we have coverage for Manila CSI and for Kubernetes like container orchestration testing as well. So that is still not decided. There's still a lot of ground to cover over there. But we are starting with our own API tests first, and then maybe we will collaborate with the Interop team when they're adding the E2E tests to make sure that the Manila CSI piece is compatible with that.
Nice.
All right. So if there are no more concerns, I think we're actually done 15 minutes early. That's crazy. I should have stacked another meeting topic out here. No, but definitely value your time. Thank you so much for attending. If you would, I will stop screen sharing for a second, and we can do a quick recap and then do a team photo. All right. Great. So thanks for attending today. We did go through the Wallaby cycle community goal. We did discuss a bunch of project planning with respect to features that need vendor operator feedback. And please look forward to the minutes on what we agreed to. And we are also going to be committing a bunch of deprecation removals. So take a look at that. It's been linked out of the Etherpad, and we discussed the community goal with Carlos, as well as the policies update that we're looking to make. We also discussed CephFS updates that Victoria is driving for the upcoming cycle. We had a great discussion regarding the divisive language correction, and now the interop stuff. I know you paid attention through all of this, and we gave you great material to go review and commit code to. So if you'd like to pose for the team photo, I'll go ahead and click stuff. So please turn on your cameras if you will. Right. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow. There is no session tomorrow. We do have a session with the OVA team at 1500 UTC. So please try to join us there. Tom is going to be leading that talk, but we will be meeting again on Friday at 1400 UTC. And Friday will be a shorter day for us of discussions, at least, because we have the fun happy hour at the end of it. So I hope you're all going to join us for that. Please do grab beers, your fun costumes, whatever it is that you want to show off on Friday. And I'm really excited. We're going to be meeting new people on Friday, including saying hello to some old friends and new friends. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Good evening. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.